So images, video, and media are part of our everyday web experience. But how can we actually take advantage of it from an e-commerce perspective? And can we make sure that we're delivering it with the best experience that we possibly can? So who am I? I'm Colby Fayock. I'm the one hugging BB-8 and Kylo Ren over there. I work with the dev community as a developer experience engineer at Cloudinary. You can find me pretty much anywhere on the web by just Googling my name, as I'm the only Colby Fayock in the world. So we're going to start at the top with the king of e-commerce, Amazon. The first thing that we see when we load this page is it's covered in media. It's a good way to showcase our available products. So it makes a lot of sense. This is a landing page for their fashion store, which likely looks similar to a lot of the top level landing pages that you typically see. We have large images that's intended to showcase a bunch of the available products out there. As well as if we scroll down, we have the ability to actually shop specific categories with images that represent each and every one of those categories. Once we dive in, we start to see a grid of images. Like here on our product listing page, the easiest way to browse a large amount of products is to put them in a list. So we put them in that grid and we can scroll through them. Once we're on our product details page, however, we want to get a closer look and choose our options. Ideally, this means having several photos that show different angles of each and every one of our products. Now, not to pick on Amazon here, but there's really nothing innovative going on here. And I'm sure they A/B test every minute detail of this page to make sure that nothing is hurting conversion, which we'll get to later, but it's all very practical and very functional. So how can we take our media to in our e-com experiences to another level? So here we have Star Cadet, where I'm a big fan of their Final Space merch. If there's any Final Space fans out here, they take advantage of GIFs to display video-like category and product images. It's a bit more of a creative approach, taking a typically very static medium and making it very exciting. Glasses USA allows their potential customers to get a first-hand look at what the glasses actually look like on somebody's face. Buying glasses is very hard. You want a pair that you're going to feel confident in. And traditionally, you'd have to kind of hope for the best if you're buying online, see how they fit, hope for a good return policy. But this gets us a step closer to see what it's actually feeling like to be inside of a store. Or better yet, iBuy Direct actually gives you a real-time feed with a virtual pair of glasses on your face, moving around with you just like you're looking at a mirror inside of the store. As far as the product page goes, you still need to have the ability to showcase your product. People need to buy something and it needs to be very clear. So you don't want to be over creative on your product pages. But like Nike here, we can use embedded video to give a better experience so people kind of have an idea of what the fit of each one of these outfits look like. As creative as some of that is, it's still fitting into the whole traditional medium of e-commerce, and the web is changing. So what does the future of e-commerce look like? Nike recently acquired Artifact Studios, a team who creates shoes and collectibles ready for the metaverse. It's similar to the collectible game that Nike has always been a part of, but now it's an investment into the digital world. And that wasn't Nike's only foray into that world. Nike launched Nike Land on Roblox. It's an experience that allows you to connect to a digital version of Nike HQ. They have games and sports and community-oriented features. But they also have a showroom that lets you go and check out special Nike products, giving you the ability to deck out your Roblox avatar with exclusive gear. And while we still have a lot of time before this kind of thing becomes completely mainstream, we're already starting to see really creative solutions around this. And there's a lot of change happening, and it's happening fast. But let's talk about some of the more practical ways of how we can look at our media today. While the metaverse is likely coming at us fast, we still need to maintain an effective Web 2.0. While for some of you, this might seem like an easy one, it's super important that we're providing and displaying large, clear images and video to showcase our products. It's especially helpful when you have more than just a single wide shot of the product, because people care very deeply about the products that they're going to buy. So being able to have a clear, close-up look at each and every one of those products helps them understand the actual quality that they're getting. And we can't have e-commerce reference shots without Apple. Apple does a really great job at showcasing large imagery detailed inside of their stores, but that's not always clear enough for the different features that are being actually displayed. They make an extra point to highlight the features. diagramming different points for each of the products, such as their potentially confusing use of 3 separate lenses on a single iPhone, where they point out the differences between each and every one of those lenses. And while it's important to have those big, clear images, which Wise does a really good job with, lifestyle photos are a way to actually place your product in people's everyday lives. Whether the potential customer knows it or not, this helps them imagine how they're going to fit this product into their own life. How could these Wise headphones help you out? While you're enjoying some music in the bed, like this fella, they're so comfortable that you might forget that you're actually wearing them, which is the tagline that you can see there if you can read it. ThinkGeek, a company that I used to work for who sells cool things from all your favorite fandom, they took this a step further. Not only did they show the products in real life scenarios, they showed it with a fun twist. So you can imagine yourself as Darth Vader, baking with your R2D2 measuring cups. But it makes a difference going this extra step, helping to make a stronger connection to your audience. Upgrading your media from static images, we have video, which can help drive more context between the visuals in a short period of time, along with audio to help provide more verbal descriptions of each of those products. But we can do better than a video embedded in a pop-up like we see here. Like my examples earlier, we can use videos in ways that are going to add to the experience of your product without taking away from the existing one. Under Armour instantly sets the tone of their homepage with this video, where their audience is full of athletes. So this is a good way to take somebody right into the gym as soon as they get on this homepage and get hyped up. We can even make videos shoppable. As the video plays like anything else, we can make it interactive, allowing visitors to actually check out what the product is without having to scavenge through the site, where we all know it's likely going to be at the very end of the list on the last page. So enough of looking at a bunch of pictures. Let's see what I did there. Did that joke translate? So how can we actually make this happen from a developer perspective? In reality, some of these answers might not include technical solutions. Like, in order to actually display large clear images, the first thing you actually need is large clear images. But you actually need to make sure that you are showing these images large and clear, and make sure that you're not over compressing or showing only the thumbnails of each of those images. People need to be able to have a clear look at these images. So take advantage of those big, beautiful images. But you can even take that a step further. You can even allow people to zoom in right on the page as they're viewing that page, avoiding unnecessary steps to take them off the page to view those images. There are a lot of great zoom-based libraries that you can help out with this. React Inner Image Zoom gives us a similar experience to Uniqlo, which is the store that I was showing there. Or there are a lot of others that give you the traditional modal experience, where if you click it, it opens up and expands. But sometimes they don't provide the zoom experience that is actually preferable for an e-commerce store. So you can try to replicate it on your own. For example, once zoom is enabled, we can dynamically grab the position of the cursor and update the image's position relative to its container. While this is a very simple example, it shows the basics of how we can start to achieve that UX. Providing point-based details is both a little bit easier and a little bit trickier. Adding some text overlaid on an image probably isn't too bad. But each and every one of these lines are pointing precisely to the lens. While we can do that pretty easily for one viewport size, realistically, most of us are trying to build responsive experiences. Again, this is a simple and incomplete representation, but we can start to see by using the resize listener and setting coordinates based on the original width and height of the image, where here it's percentage based, we can dynamically update the position as it resizes. Lifestyle imageries is also one of those things where, unless you're also the photographer, we need creative support in imagery. But we can still see how providing a nice banner like this without having to embed the text inside of the image, and by including the text on the page, is helping both with search engines to read the text and accessibility. Also, it's likely easier to make that responsive so that the text is resizing as the page is resizing. As far as video is concerned, yeah, I would imagine you're probably thinking, I can just slap a GIF right in there, or GIF if that's your kind of thing. And yeah, you could, but GIFs are huge, especially if you want them big and high quality. We can instead take advantage of actual video on the page, which, depending on the use case, may provide better results. Using the HTML video elements, we can hide all of the controls in the player UI, set it to automatically play and automatically loop, and just to make sure that you actually test your app in the solution, as this is probably the better solution, but you always want to make sure that you're testing your particular solution. Now, leveling up our video and making it shoppable, this starts to get a little bit more complex. You're likely probably going to use a custom player for this sort of thing. But again, we can start to think about how we can solve something like this on our own. Maybe we have a custom video player. We can define our products and we can define where in each of those products we have a clickable node. Those nodes can link to that specific product so that it opens up in a new UI. Ultimately, it's creating a more interactive experience for your potential customers. Now, we have a lot of awesome tools at our disposal, but it's not as always easy as dumping a bunch of images and a video on the page. There are some serious considerations to how we actually deploy these experiences to the web. Without considering the impact, we could be putting a lot of unnecessary load on people's devices and bandwidth, severely slowing down their pages, hurting their experience, but also potentially killing our store's conversion rates. Now, if you're not familiar, conversion rate is the percentage of your traffic that is actually going to buy something. There are a ton of studies of how website speed directly correlate to conversion rate. eBay, for instance, found that a 0.5% increase in their conversion rate with a 100 millisecond load time improvement. Now, 100 milliseconds might not sound like a lot of time, but eBay is worth over $10 billion. So just as an example, 0.5% of 1 billion is 5 million. So that adds up really quickly. That means that while all of our video and imagery might help provide a good user experience, that media is going to take up the vast majority of the size of the page. If we don't pay attention to how we're delivering it, we're going to bloat our pages and destroy our conversion rates. So what can we actually do to help optimize this delivery? So let's start looking at some of these examples of these images that I just grabbed from Unsplash. To start off, while JPEG is a really great option, there are more modern formats to help that we can deliver high quality images at reduced sizes. WebP and AVIF are two of those modern formats, where depending on the image can bring some drastic reductions in size. We can also compress our images to the point where we're not impacting the visual quality. Maybe it won't matter for this little tiny thumbnail that you see here. But we've learned that we want to display these images very big and nice and large, right? So we want them displayed in all of their beautiful glory. So letting tech automatically decide how much to optimize each of these images is going to help provide as small as a page as we can without providing a visual difference. We're not over optimizing and we're not wasting precious kilobytes in downloads. Now, if you're working with high quality imagery, your source files might be super huge. If you want to serve them as is, the browser has to resize those images down anyways. So you're just wasting bandwidth when you're sending them to the browser. Resize to only the sizes that you need for your particular pages. And don't try to crunch the images just to get them smaller for file size. You'll end up with super blurry and pixelated images where we learned earlier, we want them very nice and clear, right? But modern image delivery can help give you the exact sizes you need, as well as taking advantage of optimization on the fly. Now, bringing this all together, we have some pretty amazing results. Using modern formats, letting tech handle automatically optimizing all of our images, and serving the images in sizes that make sense for our particular web app, we were able to slash this particular example down from 652 kilobytes to 143 kilobytes. And again, this is just one that was unoptimized that I grabbed from Unsplash, but you can kind of see where we're going with this, and it was all without sacrificing quality. Now, these are all great options, but how can we make sure that we're doing everything we can for our own web apps? Luckily, there's a lot of great tools out there, from inspecting our sites to helping actually build our sites. You may have already heard of web.dev, but it's a site from Google with a ton of educational resources for web developers. On top of that, you have tools to help measure your website, including things like SEO, accessibility, and what we're talking about today in this particular example, performance. While this is just a small sample of results, we can see that they inspect the media on our page and see if we're actually conforming to the best practices. If they're not, they're going to tell us what's exactly wrong with our page. And like here, if we're not taking advantage of the modern formats, they're going to tell us and see what we can actually do with it. A similar tool that is specific for media is Cloudinary's website image analysis tool. Like web.dev's measure tool, it will review your site and check how you're actually serving all your media on your page. It will show you exactly what media is costing you for precious resources and what opportunities you actually have to fix it. Like here, we can see the benefits that we'd get from serving our images with those modern formats like we saw in that example earlier. Now, for actually trying to implement some of these tips, we have Responsive Breakpoint Generator. This was a project created by media experts that was actually sponsored by Cloudinary. Not only does it generate code snippets for responsive breakpoints, it also serves as an educational resource to actually teach you what is responsive imagery. So enough of looking at a bunch of pictures. I made that joke already, didn't I? Let's dive into some real code and see how this works. Now, just gonna have to bear with me for a second to see if I can figure out how to change from mirrored back to, or rather, let's see here. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I have this demo application. I simply called Astro Image Gallery. If you're not familiar with Astro, it's a web framework, kind of like Next.js or Gatsby, if you're familiar with one of those. It's a really great framework. It's kind of new, but really all I'm doing here is dumping some images uncompressed, uncompressed, unoptimized on the page. And it's really just serving as an example for how we can see how, if we're not paying attention to our images, how we're going to affect the experience. So I'm going to just inspect this and look here, and we can see that I'm just serving these images locally. So /images, and because this is deployed to Netlify, it's getting served from Netlify. So what I'm going to do here in this demo is I'm going to clone this and create a new project of it, deploy this out to Netlify, and then I'm going to show how we can use Cloudinary to automatically optimize and reduce the size of all these images without really doing much except installing a plugin. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the repository. I'm going to clone it, and let's call this city.js demo. And I really didn't need to clone it, but I figured the point just to prove that I wasn't doing anything else behind the scenes. But I'm going to remove git. I'm going to init. And a lot of this part that I'm doing isn't important. It's more just to prove that I'm actually doing it. So I'm going to create a new repository for this that I can deploy to Netlify. Let's call it city.js demo. I'm going to add my main branch, add the origin. And great, I have my new repository, which is literally just that website that I just showed. So now, if you're not familiar with Netlify, Netlify is I like to call it an auto DevOps tool, but really it's a way to easily deploy an application out to the web. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new site on Netlify with my deployed application that I just cloned there. So to do that, I'm going to authenticate with GitHub, which I'm already authorized. I'm going to grab that name and tell me if I'm going too fast here or if anything is confusing. Grab my repository. And the cool thing about Netlify, even though this isn't a Netlify specific demo, it's automatically going to determine what settings are needed to actually deploy this out to the web. So it's a really cool tool if you haven't seen it before. But I'm going to click deploy site, and off Netlify goes, where it's deploying to Amazing Police Show. That's just the automatically generated name. But because I'm using Astro, it's going to be very quick. But so we can see in a second here, we can even see the deploy logs as it's going through, what it's actually doing to build my site on Netlify's infrastructure and then actually deploy it out to the web to make it available. So while we're waiting, does anybody have any good jokes? No? No? I don't have any, to be clear.
Going to be about Astro's Playroom because of the name.
Astro's Playroom. I'm not familiar with that.
It's
Oh, okay. I'm an Xbox guy. See, it's already deployed. So we can see that this is exactly what we saw on the other site, right? This is just a cloned version of exactly what that was, but now we have it on Netlify. So what I want to show and what we're going to do to compare this is if I open up my network tab and I start to inspect the image requests that were coming in here, we can see that they're all currently coming from Netlify. They're all JPEG, and we can even see the size. We can see how long it takes to download each and every one of those images. And I'm not telling you, you don't need to memorize this. We'll come back and forth in a second. But what I'm going to do now is show how we can install the Cloudinary plugin for Netlify and automatically get optimization for all of this. So back inside Netlify, I'm going to head over to the plugins section, or if I go to the plugins directory and search for Cloudinary, I'm going to go ahead and install it to Amazing Cliche. And that's it. The only other things that I need to do for this particular plugin is I need to head over to my settings, where I know I'm going through this part a little fast, but I'm basically going to my Netlify site settings and setting an environment variable, where that environment variable is going to be Cloudinary cloud name. And I'm going to put my cloud name in here, which I'll show you, Colby demo. I'm going to hit save. And at this point, all I need to do is trigger a new deploy. So at this point, it's going to be the same process as we saw before where I first imported the project. It's going to go through with Netlify. It's going to clone down the project, build it, and then deploy it out to the web. But this time, as we'll see in the build logs, we're taking an extra step here with Cloudinary, where we're hooking into the Netlify build process and providing additional capabilities on top. So we can already see that it's trying to install that Netlify plugin for Cloudinary. So while we wait, are you sure nobody has any jokes? No? Okay, it looks like it's done already, but we can see that the on build event, this is where Cloudinary starts to hook in, and I'll explain what's actually happening here in a second. But then we have our second event, which is on post build, which is after the build process. And then we can see that it actually deploys the site and the site is live. So now if I head back over to my deploys, and I'm going to open this up in a new tab, which I specifically have the old one here, and I have the new one in a separate tab, because if I now look at the network tab and look at the images, if you remember the other one, we can start to see there's a difference here. Specifically, all these files are now showing as AVIF, and the size is reduced and the time is reduced. Now, I'm going to switch back and forth between these tabs. This was the original one that I deployed without any plugins enabled. And we go to the other one with the plugin enabled, where we can see that there's a drastic reduction in size and time spent. So all those images that are getting loaded, and just imagine this is a demo where I just have a few images on the page, right? So imagine sites where you have a ton of images and videos and all this stuff on your site. It's going to take up a lot of bandwidth for people. So being able to have this and cut it down as much as you can automatically is a huge win for not only you and your customers, but for performance and conversion rate and all that stuff. So with that, that's basically the automated way that you can take advantage of Cloudinary optimization through Netlify. But there's also a ton of SDKs, whether the C# fans out there that I've heard or the PHP fans, there's a lot of different SDKs for how you can integrate into your applications. So now let me go back to my slides. Okay, so just to recap, we were able to take this basic site where it's just loading some unoptimized images, which is very common if you're working with people who might not know what to do with images and optimize them in the first place, such as a content management system. So this is how we can automatically provide those capabilities without having to worry about really providing those huge images and affecting to create a poor UX. Now, e-commerce is an awesome way to kind of give your users a way to purchase things, whether it's just clothing or medicine or anything that you need, and how we can fit media into that to really increase the experience is really what we're here to talk about today. Now, if you want to learn more about e-commerce, I have a recent course that I launched where it's e-commerce product management and storefront with Next.js, Graph CMS, and Snipcart. You can find that at spacejelly.dev/e-commerce or ecom course, or you can head over to egghead.io to learn more. Thank you y obrigado. Happy to answer any questions. Unfortunately, I'm out of unicorn plushies back there, but please, if you want to sign up for Cloudinary to check it out, you can get more quota by using the link here.